it's me, Jay, your DM. I use he, him.
I'm Jerika. I use she, her.
I'm Embers Died. I use he, him.
And I'm Air. I also use he, him.
And this is Insight Check, where we delve into the dungeon of your bad decisions and retrieve the treasure of wisdom. And also, I get to be on it. Woo!
Yay! I'm back. We kept your seat nice and clean for you. We dusted it and everything. There weren't any cookie crumbs at all.
But you know what we did find on the ground? We found that we are really good at crawling around in dungeons.
Oh, yeah.
So then, let's go to a dungeon crawl. I put some stank on that one.
Dungeon.
You only crawl one dungeon this year.
I'll start.
Okay.
I ran 18 hours of Dungeons and Dragons this week. Last week.
Holy
Dear
cow.
God.
I run 5 hours a week.
I wouldn't recommend 9 hours a week for sure.
I wouldn't recommend 18 hours. That's a lot.
Can you tell us about these player groups, these tables that you were running?
Well, I don't want to talk too much about it.
Okay.
But I ran for work.
Awesome.
And I work in a space that does public programming. And so I ran 2 D&D clubs.
That's rad.
the past
How'd
2
they go?
weeks. They went well. Yep. I had to do a lot of that DM magic where like people were dead and I had to come up with solutions because they came to camp to have fun. You don't want to like have them sitting there doing
Right,
nothing.
not be massacred.
They're not coming back next year, so whatever.
Jerika,
Error.
can I ask, now, was this particular, option for camp, like, was it something where, like, a power that be was like, wow, this Dungeons and Dragons sure is, cool with the youths. We should offer that. Or were you like, I could do some Dungeons and Dragons?
I do think everyone had the best intentions. A coworker of mine thought that a D&D camp would be very topical this year, and did not set up a dungeon master, or had assumed that they would have given it a good old college try, or something else. So I got wind of this maybe 2 months ago, and I was like, you know what? None of y'all want to DM or know how to, so I guess I will.
You did. You done stepped up.
Yes, I did, and it's over now, and I have 2 days off, so I'm really excited.
And the greatest Dungeons and Dragons game is anyone you walk away from. That classic DM adage.
Yep. I'm still alive.
You made it. You came through the fire and flames
Yeah, that's
and
right.
other proverbs.
And other Dragon Force songs.
Yeah. Oh man, Dragon Force. Now there's a name I haven't heard in a while.
Yeah, you haven't played Guitar Hero 3 in a while, have you?
No, I have not.
All right, who else has got a dungeon crawl? Who else has been in the dungeon?
I have been in the dungeon. I have been working on a project for a long time under the alias that I like to go by, C-Team Raps. So our little insular community knows that we love Acquisitions Incorporated. We love the C-Team, or at least I do, and others tolerate it. And I'm in the business of making little time capsules, these little CDs. And we made a new CD. And I think you might have seen it in the Table Talk if you watch the Table Talk after the show. They run on Wednesdays, so it would be the last weeks. And really, like, the reason I do it is because I probably work with like a dozen or so fans, and whether it's whichever popular D&D stream, show, story, podcast, blah, 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 you like, being able to work with fans can be, in the right circumstances, one of the great joys of life. Not all fandoms are created equal. Some fandoms have, many fandoms, if not all, have their problematic parts, but I've been fortunate to find some really fine folks, and we made 11 tracks on this CD. The other thing that's really fun is I get to do CD jacket art, so I get to go like commission fan artists. So
Very exciting.
This time we had Ascanius, who has been on this show and who is the archetypal collaborative muse. He's awesome.
Do you mean Eric Alloway?
The same.
Former guest of the show, friend of the show, Eric Alloway.
We knew him. We knew him when we discovered him. No,
I don't know about
We put
that.
Eric Alloway on the
That's-
map. Let's just be real.
I don't know about
Perhaps, but in another more realistic way, he is one of the most prolific fan art creators and just art creators,
yeah.
to be honest, that
For
I've ever
sure.
seen. We also had Dunami, who did the front cover. We had Deggy, who did the back cover, featuring a brand new character design for one of those characters who underwent a body swap. And
Are you talking about K-Thris?
there is
Whoa,
this
spoilers.
has both
Oh my God. Spoiler warning. Flag on the play. Penalty.
2
10.
minutes for high sticking.
You're in the box.
All right.
Yes. So certain characters may have undergone certain changes in this season of the
Oh,
season.
come on, y'all.
So Dunami did an awesome before, and Deggy did an awesome after. And I
Oh,
love
that's
it.
awesome.
And then
Yay.
the secret surprise was the artist who did a tremendous amount of work for the D&D Acquisitions Incorporated book, who you can find at Aviv Or, contributed a little sketch as well.
Goodness gracious. What a star-studded lineup.
It's a hell of a get. I was shocked and amazed.
Yeah.
And now my hubris is miles away, and I'm just gonna go. I'll go ask Jeff Bezos to make a stick figure for the next one or something.
Absolutely.
Jeff Bezos watches the C Team? Awesome.
He does. He's the biggest fan. And all of these things will be on the Insight Check Twitter at Insight Check Pod, so you can find them at your convenience. We will retweet the C Team Raps tweet and make sure that everything is locally offered.
And C Team Raps always puts their stuff up for streaming, and there's no monetization of this or anything, which is really important for it's their IP and all of that. So we'll have posts and we'll share it.
And while you're picking up Embers Tide related music, you can also pick up Embers' tracks that they made for our small
Yeah.
folks.
Some of my favorite
because that's
musics.
also on Bandcamp. It is great music. I listen to it on the reg.
Now, I gotta ask you, Embers. We know that the most recent C Team post game table talk had the album up on the big screen. But when can folks dig into that rich content on their own? When's the joint gonna drop?
The joint is probably already available through the magic of time travel.
Dun dun dun.
Yes, through time displacement, the Quantum album.
So what you're saying is in the next week from now.
I put it live as soon as the cast receives it in physical form, and so you'll have it, and we'll put a link in. You can stream it on your streaming service of choice, as long as it's SoundCloud.
It's my streaming service of choice. Ding.
Absolutely.
Convenient.
So we have done 3 albums now. My goal is 1 more in 2019, and then my bones may rest.
Speaking of problematic community members, Air.
Hey,
I'm
me.
just kidding.
No, my only dungeon crawl, which we've retweeted, is during our last game of D&D, you threw at us a quantum tower.
The Quantum
That was
Citadel.
good bullshit for
It
sure.
was good bullshit, but I had no idea what was going on. And so there was...
You know who knew exactly what was going on right away?
Jerika?
Burn did.
Oh,
Burn.
Immediately.
I was so shocked.
Within
Burn.
seconds of the first
It was like, I
description.
got the second descriptive line out, and Burn was like, oh, Quantum Tower.
Is that a
I was like,
quantum tower?
yeah, absolutely.
Wait. Everybody back this car up.
Yeah.
What the? I'm just
essential
thinking.
question.
I'm just imagining you introducing Quantum Leap into your game.
kind of.
So basically, they passed the tower in the woods, and it looked a specific way, and then they went to a town, and the same tower was in that town, looking the exact same way. And they were like, that seems odd. Let's ignore it. And they went to the chief, and the chief was like, oh yeah, that tower, it's just always been there. Nothing weird about that. And they went outside, and the tower was gone. And then they went back inside, and they were like, hey, the tower's gone. And the chief was like, what tower? And they were like, no, I don't like this anymore.
So if you've ever seen Blink, which is a very famous Doctor Who episode, it's kind of like the Weeping Angels.
Yeah, it
In
is
some respects.
It is a tower that when it ceases to be observed, moves through time and space.
Oh shit, that's really cool.
I love that Burn immediately was like, let's go inside this. Okay, now close your eyes.
Yeah, they
Boom,
were
we're
figuring it
someone
out.
else. They were totally, they had it on lock.
They had somehow caught my wavelength, and they were just riding that wavelength, and I was very happy that somebody finally did.
Can I ask you a question? Because this came up in our community, and someone said something about blah blah has always been a bard, and you seem to know this reference. Have you used this before, or are you?
No, that is a reference to the Chain, Matt Colville's DM game,
Yes.
where there was a character who changed class between sessions. And when it came up at the table, somebody was like, hey, didn't they used to be this class? And Matt Colville looked to the camera and said, that character has always been a bard. And then just kept going. And everybody was like, all right, they've always been a bard, I guess. So yeah, they were just sharing in that humor with me. Boots has always been a bard. No, they weren't, but Boots has always been a bard. All right.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so it was very much a Boots has always been a bard situation when the tower just disappeared. There's never been a tower out there. There was a tower out there moments ago.
I was very incensed.
It was very, very funny. And then I also used this as an opportunity to troll Matt by having a character blink into his character's backstory, which he has jealously guarded. I had a character blink into his backstory. Which was quite delightful for me because I knew Matt was just squirming over there like, how much is he going to give away? Like,
not just any character, Burns' character who has been meticulously peeling away the layers.
But that I didn't plan. It could have been anybody who went into the backstory if they had gone into the tower. It was just that Burn got onto the wavelength quicker than everyone else and had this like really gumption to like delve straight in where everybody else was sort of like, hey, maybe we should like be really careful about this whole situation. Burn was like, I'm intrigued, let's rush in. And I was like, all right. So Burns' character got to the trigger point of this little cutscene and got to see this past event with Matt's character's backstory. Who knows what else will happen in the Quantum Citadel?
Well, they did, but then DP's character tried the same thing and turned to ash.
Well,
so
I think they've entered the saddest future.
The saddest future there is.
Yeah.
But here's the question.
Darkest timeline.
Is it the future?
I have theories.
All will be revealed in the Quantum Citadel.
There were 3 grown crag cats, which and the only other group of the trinity of crag cats that I know about, that's hard to say, is my children.
Yeah,
and
your
so
character's children that are deceased.
These, in this, whatever timeline reigns in, they exist and I don't, which is a funny flip.
DM advantage. I'm
will
giving it to you in the
for
podcast.
Sure. Oh yeah, I'm
Across the
opening
streams.
Chrome and taking that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Please listen.
So that you can give it to me when I'm making a death save.
Many
you
things
think
can
I
happen.
will, do you? You
you'd
think
be
I
so
will? That's presumptuous. Air.
Yeah, I think it'll make more sense after next session. I don't think it should make sense right now. I haven't given you the clues to make it make sense. It's more like I am weaving a tapestry and then
Very humble tapestry.
yeah. All the pieces are going to come together later.
It's almost like this is my magnum opus.
You may mistake the art I create as a game.
No, I'm not saying that as a brag. I am saying I am making something kind of complicated.
But that's why I have to say it as a brag for you.
Get out of here.
So one thing I definitely struggle with DMing is like waiting
Yeah, absolutely.
to reveal things or to, build things up and then reveal them. And so I have to say you are pretty good at like
I didn't
that.
used to be. It's something I have to really work at. I have been basically since the 6th or 7th session of this campaign, I have been wanting to do something that is still a ways off. And every session is a struggle not to just be like, and then you arrive at the place. And like,
And things happen.
every single time I sit down to plan, I'm like, is now the week that we do it? And then I'm like, no. It's gonna mean more if we do it later. It's gonna mean more if we do it later. But I really just want to go for it. And the other thing is the very real concern that is like unfortunate, but at the same time is relevant always, is that you're not going to have forever with any campaign. Eventually this thing has to end. And if I wait too long to kick off the big stuff, it may come up next month that somebody needs to like take a year off, and then it'll be like, oh shoot, now I have to rush everything.
Yeah.
So it's always weighing like, are people engaged? Are they still enjoying the story? Do I need to be wrapping it up? Is there something big coming up soon that's gonna like throw a curveball for this?
Right, derail
And yeah,
it.
it's a real juggling act. But anyway, I'm glad that everybody's having fun, and I'm glad that you enjoyed the Quantum Citadel.
Yes.
I did indeed. I do want to say that I do have a dungeon crawl, which I just remembered
Hang on, there
right
was
now.
one. We just talked about
Stealth crawl.
a double crawl.
I mean, I got a lot of limbs. Every one of them is capable of crawling. So I've always kind of thought that having racial ASIs tied to racial things is kind of like, it seems kind of like that would be more of a
James J. Hake.
Yes, James J. Hake on D&D Beyond posted some homebrew of his own creation, which he's actually edited with input from the community about disconnecting stats from races and instead tying them into the classes that would benefit from them most.
What James J. Hake has done here in reality is basically James J. Hake has pinned the first draft of 6th edition.
I really, or at least 5.5.
Yes.
No, I think 6th edition. I think
Wow, you're going a full
there's
edition.
There's not going to be a 5.5, I think.
Ooh.
My guess is that they wouldn't muddy the waters like that. I don't think that they would, if they're hesitant to release a second ranger class because they don't want to confuse people about having 2 different kinds of rangers, I don't think that they would have a second rule set. Yeah.
That is fair.
Also,
So-
I mean, I don't know if they want to recount the halcyon days of 3.5. It was not the finest
and
time
then
in their
D&D
history.
4th edition, which got split into 4th edition and then 4th edition next or something like that. where
Yeah,
it was
D&D
like,
next. Yeah.
No, D&D Next I think was the pre-5th edition, but there was like a time in 4th edition where they had released a second set of rules that was supposed to be more roleplay heavy, but I can't remember what it's called. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I think that they're going to be really slow to release 6th edition, but I don't think we're going to get a 5.5.
So what's your anticipated release date for 6th edition, Jay?
I think
what's the
6th.
over-under?
I think it'll be a while. I think they're going to ride this 5th edition wave as long as they can. I think that they've got a good thing going, a really nice rule set. I think that there are a few problems baked into this rule set, but I think we're just going to have to I think they're just going to be like the vegetable you don't like on your plate that you just eat because it's there and you don't want to waste it. I think some of the parts of the system are just going to have to be something that we just sort of like, okay, I'll eat the broccoli, whatever, fine. It's just going to be like that for a while. I think that racial ability scores, unfortunately, are stuck with us for a couple more years. Probably at least 5, I would guess. But we'll see. Anything could happen. It could be 2 years from now, the bigwigs at Wizard suddenly have like an amazing idea for a mechanic that makes them want to completely overhaul the system. Whatever.
I hope because, James is working for D&D Beyond and published this on D&D Beyond, it would be nice if Beyond were able to incorporate some of this into the character building so we could use it right now.
Well, I do know, as I am a moderator on D&D Beyond, and I see a lot of their stuff.
Isn't that inside dirt?
No, it's not inside dirt. I can just tell you that I would be surprised if they did, because anything that requires development time is better used on the really important features. There's a huge roadmap of features they have, and they're very aggressively going after virtual tabletop space and stuff like that. I don't think that they're going after Roll20 or something, but they are trying to implement a lot of those features so that you can basically run your game on D&D Beyond. I don't think that that's a surprise to anyone. I mean, they've added an encounter builder. They're adding an initiative tracker. They're adding an HP tracker. They've got a dice roller coming. Like, it's going to be very soon that you can basically run a game just without a map.
Yeah.
So I think it's unfortunately dev time is quite precious for them. So I would be surprised to see a feature like this get the full development treatment. But it's a cool feature, and it's very, very similar to what we saw in Pathfinder 2. A lot of the character creation aspects of this are very similar to what we saw in Pathfinder 2, where you can kind of freely select your points and how they go based on your background and your class and your... I think it's a little more straightforward than the Pathfinder 2 version, though.
Yeah, he's suggesting either class or background as the way to kind of put them, which I think makes a lot more sense. You get a 2 and a 1.
I think the background is my preference, just because classes can be sort of varied in what you need or want. And I think that backgrounds just make a little bit more sense because backgrounds don't have a lot of mechanical advantage right now, and attaching ability score increases to them would make them more interesting, I guess. Although then it would probably lead to a lot of 1 or 2 backgrounds being used for a class because it's the optimized background for that class, which is like the same problem we have with race. So I don't know. I don't know what the fix is.
Well, I think the thing is with background, there's always the custom option, right?
We could talk about this for
another
long
time. Yes, this is true. Let's shore that up.
But honestly, this James A. Hake thing is really cool. It's an interesting conversation, an important one that we're going to have eventually in the Dungeons and Dragons community. They are going to have to eventually divorce stats from your ancestry and the word race from your ancestry, because these are things that are overdue. We can't have eugenics in D&D. We can't have elves are just good at dexterity, because it's uncomfortable language and it's not good.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's James J. Hake is broaching a minefield, and God bless him.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about our main topic today, which is we're going to discuss DM tools. Yeah. Because the truth is, it's not about working harder, it's about working smarter.
And preferably also less.
Yeah, absolutely. Every tool is a gateway to have more time to enjoy the game and less time working at the game. So who's got tools today? I've got a lot. I'll go last.
I have one tool.
Great.
One tool.
Sure.
The best tool. Microsoft Excel and or Google Sheets.
The Omni tool. Yes.
Yes. I ran all of my combat through Excel.
Really?
The last 2 weeks, yes.
Tell me more.
Yes.
Welp, I am a lover, not a fighter, and for some reason that means that I type out all of the possible monsters in the back of the starter set Fandelver book into a sheet, and I have the name, obviously, who's running it, aka the DM, HP, AC, then I do all 6 abilities, and then, or the modifiers, and then I do like a little blurb about what they do for fighting. Yeah, and then I copy it when one of them arrives on the the scene. I copy their name, who is running it, their HP and their AC into an initiative tracker sheet, and then I initiative track on that sheet. And also do HP stuff.
Seems a little front heavy on the labor, but on the back end, you're going to save a lot of time because you've got everything in a very convenient factor.
Yeah.
I also use Excel for stuff like that. And the thing that drives it for me is I'm familiar with Excel, but also it lets me organize it exactly how I want as it's intuitive to me. Because like when I see an interface like D&D Beyond, totally impressive and I use it, but it's not how I would lay out the data. I can't make something look so pretty and be so functional as a piece of software, but just as a data repository, I usually lay things out differently. And Excel or a Google Cloud Sheets,
yeah.
Basic, but basic is good sometimes.
She eats, Embers. She eats. All right.
Yes.
I
Apologies
have
to our
say
sponsor, Google Incorporated.
that I agree with you.
It's funny you should bring up initiative trackers, because the one thing I want to put out there to the D&D community is this. I've looked through many initiative trackers, online ones, document ones. I have yet to see one that tracks concentration. Why isn't there a toggle for concentration? I need a big blue light beside the word concentration that I can turn on and off so that I remember to make those checks when those characters take damage.
I'll pass that along to my close personal friend, Adam Bradford.
At D&D Beyond. Thank you so much. I see more esoteric things like, do you have DM advantage, or, are you stunned or paralyzed right now? Which is good things to remember. It's just the concentration thing. Please, someone, anyone, add that to your initiative tracker.
Yeah.
And I will buy it ASAP.
It's so easy to forget concentration.
Yes, it really is.
And at the same time, concentration is so much better than all the other mechanics that would do that for you. Like, that would limit the wizards in that specific way.
It is, we've talked about it before, but it is an incredibly elegant solution to two major problems, which is kind of gating really high level spells to keep them from going on forever, and gating buff stacking. All in one mechanic is actually very impressive.
It is. It's really good. But just remembering concentration checks can be a real pain. So if the initiative tracker handled that, it would be a tremendous load off of our minds.
It really would be.
I think Adam Bradford calls this computer-assisted roleplay mechanics. Computer-assisted roleplay mechanics where... oh my god, I just realized that spells carp. So anyway, carps. So carps are these, like, the future of kind of rules-heavy roleplay games where you're going to have a app or something like that comes out with every major roleplay system that'll help you handle all the maths and the difficult, complex parts in the background, and then leave you for more of the roleplay decisions and the and actually choosing which features to use. And Adam Colbo believes this is going to be some sort of like future of games like D&D and things like that are mechanics heavy. So yeah, this would be a carp where the computer's assisting you remembering this mechanic of concentration.
Absolutely.
I think if Wizards of the Coast is smart and maybe a little gutsy, that's what they will become. They will become a software as a service. They'll become a software as a service platform that you subscribe to and buy DLC instead of
D&D Beyond
books.
is a lot of that. Yeah,
I think that's its final form, so to speak, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, well, there were two quality segues here, because also speaking of our Lord and Savior, Google Christ,
I thought you were going to say Matt Colville. Cha-ching.
Yeah. Well,
Cha-ching.
I mean, cha-ching. Wow, callback. Deep callback. Haven't done that one in a while. If you were to load up google.com right now and type roll space 2d6, you'll get a lovely dice roller on Google.
Isn't that nice?
Yeah, they built that in. You can even add modifiers to every roll. You just click the dice in the row to throw it out there. It has a nice little animation. You click that dice again to get rid of it. You do any combination you want. It's pretty fun, pretty handy just to have that right in Google.
Yeah, I think a dice roller is not a particularly complex engineering challenge. And I think one of the things that's kept D&D Beyond from launching theirs is that they want to have like customization options and stuff like that. They want it to be like interesting, because there are a bunch of dice rollers out there. So it's not relevant to release just another dice roller. They want to release something that's like interesting for the customer base, something that they can, monetize in some way, I'm sure.
I mean, I have no doubt that there will be custom skins on these dice.
Oh, yeah, of course.
It'll become. They'll
have like level up dice skins that you can put on your whatever. I'm sure it'll be something.
It's going to be like the Kraken dice Fallout, where it's like, these dice don't look anything like the pictures. I'm like, it's just a screenshot. They look exactly like that.
It is a render, though. No, hang on.
You literally
these
can't not get what
they
you
look
pay
exactly the same.
Don't bring dice drama into this
let's
podcast.
talk about more tools. We're already 30 minutes in.
I've got two more. And then I promise they're real quick. The other
Oh,
is
hang on. No, we don't have to be quick. But how about this? How about I do? How about I do one, and then that way I don't have to talk for like an hour at the end of the podcast.
Okay, yeah, you go, Jay.
We
You
can
tell
break
us
up some of
all
mine.
about
Put
stuff.
that J in here.
That's what Embers calls nap time.
Oh, boy. Wow.
Call out.
Jeez. Killing me live on the internet. Okay, here we go. I'm going to link Dungeon. It is Gen instead of the normal way you'd spell it. It is a random dungeon generator. It just generates maps that are formatted for Roll20 or Fantasy Ground.
That is amazing.
That is so cool.
You can click the size of the dungeon you want, a huge dungeon, small dungeon, tiny dungeon, mini dungeon. Generates, and it will generate you a 2 to 200 room dungeon. And they look pretty good. I like the small size. I think is probably the right size, actually. I think that small is a nice little dungeon crawl without being too big. Yeah, and then you can generate it, and you can even click multi-level, and it'll split up the maps among, it's great. Dungeon. It's a wonderful software.
That sounds incredibly useful. Like that's an incredible time saver.
It creates a finished map that you can export and then upload into Roll20 and run. And with things like Yuikami's decor items, you can sit there and decorate it with a few doors and stuff like that. Or you can do 2-minute tabletops, decoration items, and decorate it with traps and stuff like that.
I want to say, like, when I was first running, like, building a dungeon, I was searching D&D for full dungeon maps at, like, crazy resolutions to bring into Roll20. And then, dropping in decorations. This is perfect. Like, we've talked about environmental storytelling. I can already see in some of these maps, like, oh, this looks like living quarters. This looks like an opening atrium. This looks like some sort of weird sacrificial chamber or something. Like, there's already narrative elements just kind of popping out of this.
And each map generates a seed that you can then share to your friends so that they can generate the same exact map.
Oh, that's so clever. I like it.
So another thing I'm going to quickly recommend is Chaotic Shiny. Chaotic Shiny is not specifically for Dungeons and Dragons. It is more for writing and roleplay in general. And it basically there are a million billion things on the sidebar here, and it will generate you random outputs of those. So constellations, cultural mix, flags, holidays, magic, mottos, pantheons,
like Jeopardy.
Yeah, so it's just a random content generator. And if you need to quickly flesh out your setting a little bit with things like a medieval army, you want to generate one medieval army, you can raise it and it will generate you random information about a medieval army. This army is known for its quick-moving infantry and for the use of heavy crossbows. They are also known for using halflings and foreigners. They are famous for impressing the peasants with their ranks and their harsh discipline. Each corps contains 10 teams of 100 soldiers. They have a highly formal chain of command with ranks based on aptitude. Currently, they are anticipating a crushing defeat. And there you go. Generated content if you need it on the fly. So it's called Chaotic Shiny, and I'll provide that link on the Twitter as well.
That's pretty cool. So it's like it's like a far more intricate. Hey, what's that NPC's name?
I was just going to suggest speaking of dice rollers, Sidekick, which is a beloved Discord bot for doing rolls, has all your common roll abilities, has the ability to keep the highest or drop the lowest of a particular roll. So you can roll at advantage or disadvantage or generate stats by doing 4d6, drop the lowest, etc., etc. Sidekick, great dice rolling bot for Discord.
Kid tested, air approved.
Okay, Air, kicking it back to me. Absolutely. I can take it from here with a couple of interesting options. First is the NPC generator. This thing is great because it makes really fleshed out NPCs really quickly. So here's the website. And you can select specific features that you may want. So let's say I need a dwarf. I need a hill dwarf. I need a good hill dwarf.
Story of my life.
And then I can pick classic or funky plot hook. Generate that. So here we go. Arkhood Ruby Miner. Arkhood Ruby Miner is a 140-year-old male hill dwarf merchant. Has very long, curled brown hair with brown eyes.
Yes.
Has soft, gray skin. He discreetly worships Tempest, god of war. He would rather act than talk or think. He is a perfectionist. He has almost never been above ground. He stretches the truth to tell a good story. Sexual orientation, straight. Relationship status, married. And it does have non-straight sexual orientations, which is, I don't know, that's nice to see. Plot hook, he needs help sabotaging a race. That was his funky plot hook.
That's pretty funky.
Fresh.
Yeah.
It is pretty cool, though. Like, it gives you a lot of details. Gives you their ability scores. Gives you their alignment tendencies. I don't know what that means, but... and obviously, you know, any randomly generated content is going to require a little refining to fit into your world.
Yeah.
But it gives you a very strong basis to build off of.
Yeah, you have a lot to react to, right?
Stretches the truth to tell a good story is a great character trait that I may not have thought of on my own. It helps me identify who this person is. And then it gives me a name, which is always nice. Carl Pebbleback. Funda Knobblebringer.
Can I tell you the first character who I generated?
Sure.
I generated a goblin. That was the only thing I put in, and their name is Jizzlex.
Great.
Wow.
Which sounds like a medication of sorts, but more importantly, they worship Istitia, god of water, purification, and wetness.
Delicious, for sure.
Well, this is a certain kind of character for a certain kind of campaign.
Yeah, this is going to be my character in our next campaign.
Great.
I rolled Korth, a 29-year-old female dragonborn cleric with a smooth head and black eyes, ridged blue scales, 6'3", oval, creepy face. She is slightly allergic to nuts.
Useful.
Fascinating.
I mean,
I like that she's slightly allergic to nuts. It's just a thing that most people wouldn't include.
I know.
Right?
It's not hard, but having it there is like, it gives you a lot to react to and respond to. There's one little breadcrumb.
When you are like sitting down with this character and having a conversation, they're like, "Oh, I'll buy you a drink." And, "Oh, don't make sure there's no nuts in it." Wait,
Right.
what? Yeah, I'm allergic. And they'll be like, your players will be like, "What? What? They have allergies?"
And this character is both very talkative and often spaces out, lost in thought. So that's going to be interesting to roleplay.
Next one, very simple one, is a spellbook generator. It generates randomized spellbooks. You can set the school of magic if you want to specify it. So if they're talking to a divination wizard and they steal that divination wizard's spellbook, you can click school divination. You can choose their wealth, base, wealthy, or rich, and you can choose their level, and then generate a random spellbook, and it will give you a list of spells, which is great if you have a wizard in your party.
Brought to us by Portland State University Computer Action Team.
Great. And then the last thing I want to talk about, probably the coolest thing I found, is the online Dungeon Master screen.
What?
So it is a DM screen that has basically every rule you could ever need on the fly in one location.
Oh, handy.
You have little tabs on the sidebar, or you have a search bar on the top. And you can look up things like what came up in my last session, water requirements. And I can look up how much water does my party need. And it'll pull it up.
Random tables for short-term and long-term madness.
Mm-hmm. A PC can only travel for 8 hours a day before they risk becoming exhausted. A PC requires 1 gallon of water per day, or 2 if the climate is harsh.
Shit.
There we go. I now have the water requirements for my party. And yeah, the sidebar has everything you could need. I mean, combat information, conditions. Obviously, conditions is a common one. You can look up actions and combat. You can look up the rules for cover, because nobody ever remembers those. You can look up the wild magic table for a wild magic surge. Random tables are always fun. A quick find, something happened, dungeon hazard. Something happened. You can roll a d20. Let's look at 13. Someone has a sense of foreboding. All right, great. A nice little something happened. If you need to push the action along in your game and you can't think of anything, you can always roll on the something happened table. Dungeon obstacles, traps, etc., etc. And yeah, it's a DM screen, but has far more information than any DM screen could ever hold. And it's all very easily searchable, so you can run it on your web browser, on your laptop, or whatever. Really, really handy. And of course, you can actually look through, it also has the book indexes. So if you need to pull out your book for a rule or some more information on something, it has the indexes here as well, so you can find what page rules are on.
Oh, smart. Well played, well played.
It gives you the rules for how hard to make a lockpick check. Yeah, it's very good. Anyway, it is called the 5e Dungeon Master screen, online 5th edition DM screen, and it is extremely handy.
I like it a lot. It is like I'm seeing damage, severity, and level. So they give you a level range, and they kind of say this is a setback, this is dangerous, and this would be deadly for a character of this level. Like I was just trying to figure out the damage for a trap in a one shot I ran, and I was like, I don't know. I guess they could cast spells like this high, so maybe this much. Here it is, right here.
Yep. I've been using this in my last couple of sessions, and it's helped me a lot with being quicker on the draw with rules and things like that, without having to bounce between different sites like D&D Beyond and stuff like that. And more importantly, on D&D Beyond, I would go to the search bar, and then I would type in the rule, and then I would find the result for the rule, and then I would click the result, and then it would take me to a page with the rule, and then I would find the rule on the page. Whereas here, I search the rule that I'm looking for, and it just takes me to that rule real quick. So it's very, very responsive in the way, like, D&D Beyond has to be a resource of knowledge, whereas this is providing a specific utility for DMs.
It's okay, D&D Beyond, you're still pretty.
I mean, D&D Beyond is great. Don't get me wrong. They just serve different functions, and this site is very, very useful to have around.
Yeah.
So yeah.
The design is amazing. Like as you just scroll through it, it actually jumps to the table of the contents on the left, keeping up with you.
Yeah. Exactly. So you can find it again later pretty easily if you need to. For example, again, going back to water requirements, I was actually looking up the survival check for food gathering previously.
Oh, yes.
And so I had actually familiarized with myself with that rule, but then I'd forgot what the role was. So then I had to go back into the rules, and because I'd already been there once before, I kind of knew how to jump around and get there quickly during the session. So yeah, having that sidebar keep up with you is handy.
Nice.
Here's one for destroying objects. Object armor class, cloth 11. Bone 15 bone has an AC of 15, even though the flesh around the bone may have a lower AC than that.
The last one I have, which is something I've been using recently for one shots. I've been running mostly Theater of the Mind, so I'm not normally getting into a virtual tabletop like your Roll20s and whatnot, but I still want the ambiance of music and kind of ambient sound in the background. So I put together a series of, it was a kind of a jungle Indiana Jones style Choltian jaunt, and I put together, as I kind of figured, various scenes would play out, music and background sounds together. And I was like, well, how am I going to do this? Because we're just playing in voice over Discord. So Rhythm, RYTHM, which is a lovely bot you can add, will play any YouTube video, SoundCloud streaming sound or music, a SoundCloud playlist. So I just loaded these files I had put together all in the SoundCloud in the playlist and brought it in. It's all text commands. You play it, you loop it. You can just go next track. And it worked gangbusters in the last session I ran for just adding a nice bit of ambiance and music.
That is awesome.
To the experience.
Because you don't want that to be super clunky, right? Like you want that to just be a simple command and it plays what you want it to play and be controllable. Mm-hmm. But more importantly, what kind of a band would Choltian Jaunt be?
Well, Choltian Jaunt definitely sounds like the Faerun version of these turn of the century prospector looking folk alt rock bands.
I was thinking along those lines. I was thinking like Lovecraftian ragtime.
Oh my goodness. Now that's a genre.
Hello, my terror. Hello, my horror.
Hello, my tentacles.
Hello, my wrath. Yeah, DM tools. I think here's the thing, right? It's very, very easy to spend a lot of time setting up a session. I think that one of the mistakes people make in Dungeons and Dragons and running Dungeons and Dragons is spending way too long preparing for sessions and becoming intimidated by the amount of preparation that's necessary. So actually, here's a stealth final suggestion.
Feeling very called out right now, but go ahead.
MCDM released a one-sheet page recently for your setting. It has a list of questions where if you go through these questions, at the end, you will have a setting. And it's very simple. It just describes the local area. It's like, what is the town's name? What is the inn in the town named? Who is the mayor of the town? And so it sets up that town. What is a nearby river? What is a town that would take a short amount of time to travel to? What is a town that would make a long time to travel to? What is that town known for? And then at the end, it's like, what is something everyone in your world knows? What is something only few in your world knows? What's something no one in your world knows? And then by the time you've answered all these questions, you will have a setting. You will have like a interesting fantasy world that you can explore. And your questions will be answered differently from everyone else's. Because there's no way that in all these questions you will think the exact same way as anybody else. Your approach to storytelling is going to be different because you are different from everybody else. When you start DMing, you don't need Faerun. You need Waterdeep or Red Larch. You need one town. You don't need Waterdeep. You need Red Larch. You need one town that's known for one thing, that has a few people that are very interesting. And you need a river and a woods and a mountain nearby. And that's it. The map can grow as you grow. I did this when I first made my world. I made this whole big map, and I put like 20 towns in a whole planet, just scattered miles apart. And it was like stupid. I should have just started with one little landmass and really fleshed it out and spread out from there. I made myself more work than was necessary. And that wasn't my first time running a game, but that was my first time like making a world.
Right.
And since then, I've just been adding to that map and adding to that map and adding to that map and filling in the gaps, the huge gaps between towns with smaller towns that are located on the way, finding rivers and adding bodies of water and fleshing out the map. My map's on version like 7 now, and it's gotten infinitely more detailed than it previously was.
Which we saw like 3 or 4 versions on our game.
Yeah, DMing is not that hard. Make a small thing, prepare for 3 or 4 hours. It will that preparation of 3 or 4 hours will last you 5 or 6 hours because your players are going to bring a lot of extra content. And then when you get to the end of the session, take the information you learned from that session, the things that you're interested in from that session, and use that to plan the next session. If you start the first session with the final session already planned out, then you're closing doors everywhere. And it's not that hard. Just and then, like, if you feel like you're underprepared, that's why we have random NPC generators. So if your players go talk to somebody you're not expecting, random NPC generator.
Yeah.
If your players fight an encounter you weren't expecting, random treasure generator. If you need to prepare a fight that you weren't ready for, that's why we have D&D Beyond or Kobold Fight Club or something like that. Yeah, you can always put this stuff together on the fly. And if you're ever feeling like, oh my gosh, I am so overwhelmed, I'm so behind, I can't keep going, tell everybody, hey, let's take 10 minutes. Everybody go to the bathroom, get some water. And you take 10 minutes and just sort of figure out what's next. And with an hour of preparation, you can play for 4 hours. If you're not, and it's fine if you want to like get really deep and gritty in it, and that's the fun for you, is getting really granular, playing Sims in your world, right, and really designing everything. But it doesn't have to be.
That's not the vignette you're making. You're making the vignette where someone is getting paralyzed by the over preparedness and the drive to be complete before you present the first piece.
Regarding Dungeons and Dragons is that it takes forever to prepare.
Right.
I'm here to tell you, it doesn't.
There's another way.
Permission. Yeah, you have my permission to just play. Yeah. Just go for it. Create Town. Go to downtown and visit the lovely barmaid Keep.
Yeah.
And then
she's got a beautiful singing voice for sure.
Absolutely. And that's going to be fine. Your players will laugh at that, but they won't be laughing long because eventually they're going to be telling stories, and that's where the magic will happen. And eventually, the Keep named Keep will become their favorite person.
Right.
If you just put enough humanity in them.
Right.
Yeah, and I think that is all I have to say on DM tools. Use them.
But don't let them use you.
There's a lot of really great DM.
I think it's just really easy to make a web page. Like, and you could your first year HTML class in high school, you could put out some of this stuff in its earliest draft and launch it, and people could use it, and the information would be there. So much of D&D prep revolves around tables and data and process and rules. Just, I mean, that's what there is. You can choose to use it or not, but that's what the stuff in the book is. And so it's really easy to just post that to a website. That's all you need to do to create a tool. Now, the nuance that you put on it, making it easier to navigate, making it easier to scale or implement or tweak or play with, well, especially if you have like you have DM's block or writer's block, like these things can give you something to react to and just like...
Yeah, they're like writing prompts for a writer, where you just create a writing prompt to just get you writing.
Right.
And then once you're writing, you can write what you want to write. Like, once you are randomly generating NPCs and you see that one line of dialogue that gives you an idea, then from there you can do whatever you want to do. Anyway, I think that's an episode of Insight Check. Thank you all for joining us for another episode of Insight Check. We are always glad to have you around, and we appreciate you sticking with us. Getting really close to 100 episodes. That's going to be special.
Once you figure out what we're doing.
We're very well prepared for everything.
Of course.
As always, please leave a rating on iTunes if you would like. 5 stars is preferable, but a number of stars that you deem reasonable. We would also appreciate if you would check out Vinswept. They have a catalog of music perfect for your Dungeons & Dragons game. We use the song Never Stand Alone for our intro and outro. We would also appreciate if you would give a shout out to Amy T. Falcone, acclaimed artist for Dungeons & Dragons and Wizards of the Coast, and adventure writer now. Amy T. Falcone, who did our faces. Without you, we wouldn't have faces, and that would be awful. And as always,
answering your cues from our collective A's. This
was
Insight
Check!
This is a very McElroy outro. It's like, hey, there is your DM, your friend, and your plumber. I'm gonna make sure that we snake that drain so you don't get the backup problems you've been calling me about.